The greatest illusion we inherit about life is the belief that growing up is inevitable. We assume that time performs the work for us, patiently carving wisdom into every face it touches. Years pass, birthdays accumulate, wrinkles appear, voices change, and responsibilities multiply. From a distance, it all looks like growth. Yet appearance has always been a poor witness of reality. Time can reshape the body while leaving the mind trapped in rooms it entered decades ago. Think about the people you've known. Perhaps someone comes to mind immediately. A person who falls apart over the smallest frustration. Someone incapable of admitting they were wrong, who turns every disagreement into a personal attack or every criticism into a threat. It could be a parent, a partner, a friend, a colleague. Or perhaps for a brief moment, you recognized a fragment of yourself in one of those reflections. What makes this unsettling is that very few people consciously choose to remain emotionally immature. No child dreams of becoming an adult haunted by reactions they cannot explain. The roots usually reach much deeper. Somewhere along the way, many learned that expressing sadness carried consequences, that trust could become a source of pain, or that vulnerability demanded a price too expensive to pay. Survival slowly replaced authenticity. The child remained alive, while a part of their emotional development stopped moving altogether. This raises a far more disturbing question than the one most people ask. The real mystery isn't why some adults behave like children. It's what happened inside them that prevented part of their inner world from ever leaving childhood. How does emotional development freeze while life continues its relentless march? Why do the same conflicts return decade after decade, wearing different faces, entering different relationships, different cities, different careers, as though existence were caught in a loop no amount of external change can break? Psychology offers part of the answer. Neuroscience reveals another layer. Trauma research uncovers patterns that repeat with unsettling precision. Yet beyond science lies an older observation shared by philosophers, mystics, and thinkers across centuries. The greatest prisons are rarely built with stone. They are built from memories, fears, and identities we mistake for ourselves. In this video, we'll explore how emotional immaturity is formed through the lenses of developmental psychology, neuroscience, and the work of thinkers like Gabor Maté, Carl Jung, Donald Winnicott, and Erik Erikson. This isn't about finding someone to blame, nor is it another promise of easy healing. It's an invitation to understand how a child can continue directing the life of an adult, and why genuine maturity may be one of the rarest achievements a human being can attain. No one enters the world emotionally immature. Every child arrives carrying the same invisible expectation: to discover whether this is a place where they can exist without having to earn the right to be loved. Long before language appears, the brain is already studying faces, voices, and gestures, trying to answer a question that will shape everything that follows. Is it safe to be myself here? For some, the answer is yes. Emotions are welcomed. Mistakes become lessons, and love remains steady even when behavior needs correction. Yet many children grow up in environments where affection feels uncertain. They begin to notice that sadness makes others uncomfortable, anger invites rejection, or honesty creates conflict they are too young to understand. Little by little, they stop expressing what they truly feel. The personality doesn't disappear, it goes into hiding. This is not weakness, it is adaptation. Psychiatrist Gabor Maté often reminds us that trauma is less about the event itself than about what happens inside a person because of it. A child who constantly feels emotionally unsafe doesn't simply remember those moments. Their nervous system learns to expect them. Over time, protection becomes a habit, and habits gradually become identity. Years later, that child may appear fully grown while still relying on emotional patterns shaped in a completely different world. The one who learned to suppress fear may struggle to experience intimacy. The one who survived by pleasing everyone may no longer know what they genuinely want. A need that once preserved life begins to dictate it. Childhood ends on the calendar. The mind follows a different measure of time. Experiences that were never understood don't remain frozen in the past. They continue echoing through present decisions, influencing relationships, ambitions, and even the image reflected back in the mirror. Until those patterns are recognized, yesterday keeps introducing itself as today. There comes a moment when a survival strategy stops being something we use and starts becoming someone we believe we are. The line between protection and identity slowly disappears. Like a traveler who spends years carrying a heavy shield, we eventually forget what it feels like to move without its weight. The burden no longer seems optional. It feels like part of the body. Carl Jung described the persona as the face we present to the world, a necessary adaptation that allows us to function in society. The danger begins when the mask becomes permanent. Once that happens, every situation is filtered through an old instinct. Avoid being hurt again, no matter the cost. This is why some people cannot tolerate disagreement. Others defend obvious mistakes with surprising intensity. The conversation itself is rarely the real problem. Beneath the surface, something much older is reacting. A correction can feel like humiliation. A different opinion can resemble rejection. An apology can seem less like an act of maturity and more like surrendering a part of oneself. The same pattern appears in perfectionism, excessive people-pleasing, or the constant need to stay in control. These behaviors often look like personality traits, although they are frequently emotional fortresses built around old fears. Walls are useful during a storm. They become a prison when the weather has already changed. The mind rarely asks whether its defenses are still necessary. It simply repeats what once ensured survival. That is why emotional patterns can outlive the circumstances that created them. Life moves forward, relationships change, opportunities appear, yet the same protective reflex keeps standing at every doorway, deciding who enters and who remains outside. The greatest irony is that the armor no longer protects us from the past. It protects the past from ever being questioned. As long as it remains untouched, growth becomes almost impossible, because nothing new can reach a heart that mistakes every open hand for another battlefield. There is a profound difference between understanding your past and building your identity around it. One creates the possibility of change. The other turns yesterday into a permanent residence. Many people never notice when that transition happens. They stop carrying their wounds, and their wounds begin carrying them. Our minds naturally search for explanations. They want to understand why certain fears exist, why some relationships fail in familiar ways, or why the same emotional pain keeps returning under different names. There is value in that search. Awareness is often the first step toward freedom. Even so, understanding can become another form of escape if it replaces responsibility. Developmental psychologist Erik Erikson believed that every stage of life presents challenges that shape our sense of self. When those challenges remain unresolved, the search for what was missing does not disappear. It simply changes direction. An adult may spend years looking for the acceptance, security, or reassurance that should have been received much earlier, expecting partners, friends, or even careers to fill an absence they were never designed to heal. This is why certain patterns repeat with remarkable consistency. Different faces enter our lives, different places become home, different opportunities appear. Yet the emotional script barely changes. We mistake repetition for fate, although it is often the familiar pulling us back toward itself. The known can feel safer than the unknown, even when it has been the source of our deepest suffering. The hardest truth is that pain can become comfortable, not because it feels good, but because it feels familiar. The human mind is often more willing to choose predictable suffering than uncertain freedom. Breaking that cycle requires more than recognizing old wounds. It demands the courage to stop consulting them before making every decision. The past explains many things. It cannot be allowed to decide everything. Otherwise, life becomes an endless attempt to relive the same chapter while hoping for a different ending. Emotional immaturity rarely destroys a life through a single dramatic event. Its damage is cumulative. Like water finding the smallest crack in stone, it returns again and again until what once seemed solid begins to give way. Most people notice the collapse. Few ever notice the years of erosion that made it inevitable. The price appears first in relationships. Every conversation becomes heavier than it should be because old fears quietly rewrite present moments. A simple disagreement turns into proof of rejection. An honest conversation feels like a threat to one's worth. Trust becomes difficult, not because trustworthy people are absent, but because the mind keeps measuring today's reality with yesterday's ruler. Eventually, the consequences spread far beyond love. Friendships become fragile. Opportunities are abandoned after the first setback. Constructive criticism sounds like condemnation. Pride replaces curiosity, certainty replaces growth, and isolation begins to feel safer than connection. The world itself seems increasingly hostile, even though much of that hostility exists only through the lens of unresolved expectations. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is that emotional immaturity rarely remains personal. Every unresolved wound influences the people standing nearby. Children learn how to love by watching those who raise them. Partners slowly adapt to emotional distance until it feels normal. Friends stop reaching out after enough closed doors. Pain has a way of extending its reach, even when no one intends to pass it forward. Psychological research consistently shows that the quality of our relationships is one of the strongest predictors of long-term well-being. This should not surprise us. Human beings were never shaped to survive entirely alone. Yet when fear becomes the architect of our lives, we slowly build houses with no windows, then wonder why no light ever enters. Growing older is unavoidable. Growing inward requires something entirely different. It asks us to examine the foundations beneath our lives before the weight of another decade settles upon walls that were already beginning to crack. Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about healing is believing that it means becoming someone new. More often, it asks for something far more difficult. It asks us to stop protecting an identity that was built for a world which no longer exists. Many people spend years trying to repair their lives while refusing to question the version of themselves that was created by fear. They polish the armor, strengthen the walls, perfect the mask. Then they wonder why nothing truly changes. Transformation cannot happen if every attempt at growth is filtered through the same defenses that prevented it in the first place. Donald Winnicott believed that psychological maturity emerges when a person is able to live from the authentic self, instead of the false self created to secure acceptance. Carl Jung reached a similar conclusion through a different path. He argued that becoming whole does not require removing the darker parts of our nature. It requires meeting them honestly, without allowing them to rule our lives from the shadows. This is where real adulthood begins. It is not marked by age, financial success, or social status. It begins the moment we accept that our past deserves understanding, though it does not deserve permanent authority. The child who once adapted to survive made the only choices they could. The adult, however, possesses something that child never had: the ability to choose consciously. That choice is rarely comfortable. Letting go of familiar patterns can feel like stepping onto solid ground after spending years at sea. The stability you longed for may initially feel unfamiliar simply because chaos became your reference point. Yet unfamiliar does not mean wrong. Sometimes it is the first sign that you are finally moving toward a life that belongs to you. Growing up has never been about becoming invulnerable. It is about reaching the point where fear no longer writes your story. The past may always travel with you. It simply no longer has to hold the steering wheel. If this video gave you something to think about, you've already supported this channel simply by watching. Sharing it with someone who needs it helps even more. If you'd like to go further, consider becoming a member. You'll unlock 100+ exclusive videos exploring psychology, philosophy, and the hidden patterns of the human mind. And if this video truly resonated with you, leaving a super thanks is one of the most meaningful ways to support future content. Thank you for being here. It means more than you know.